Good morning, friends. Today I shall be talking about cultural materialism. To begin with cultural materialism, it is important for all of us to know the kind of culture and the kind of material which the topic involves. Traditionally, we have been considering culture in terms of exclusive culture, standard culture, high culture, elite culture, bourgeoisie culture, which is fixed, dominant, powerful, a kind of parameter, a kind of yardstick, and that is the valid, authentic, and genuine culture. Instead of this assumption, cultural materialism talks about that kind of culture which is non standard, which is low, which is mass, popular, TV culture, cartoon culture. So, in a nutshell, they talk about not one culture, they talk about cultures. And this culture is deeply rooted in the power dynamics. And cultural materialism, if I have to talk about that, it simply talk about class, power, and ideology. Materialism, money, certain basic Marxist assumptions, base, superstructure. The man is not natural, not spontaneous, not God made. Rather, the being of a human being is determined by the material forces. The being is not, as I said, spontaneous and natural, prefixed, pre-given. Rather, it is a product, it is a construction. So, how it is against certain idealistic notion. No, a man is not to be considered into essentialities of soul, over soul, right? Not these. Rather, one needs to consider the identities in terms of construction, in terms of production, circulation, and consumption. A very important Marxist notion. While talking about cultural materialism, I will simply request you to keep in mind certain basic theoretical assumptions which we have discussed in New Historicism. So, cultural materialism as a critical discourse began in England, and the most important one happens to be Raymond Williams, who has the credit to coin the term, followed by Ellen Stanfield and Jonathan Dallimore, who came with the book Political Shakespeare. In order to understand certain important implications of cultural materialism, it is but important for all of us to know certain important critiques and their assumptions. So, while talking about New Historicism, I was talking about the most influential role played by Michel Foucault, especially his concept of history, especially his concept of historical site as a site of competing interests, and most important, the concept of discourse as power. Somewhere we were in a position to understand Foucault, especially his concept of power, where he talks about the dominant power as well as other power structures which are latent, subjugated, subservient, which seem to be discursive, which seem to subvert the dominant power structure. But in the longer run, dominant power structures are, in a way, manage to balance their status quo while subjugating and while silencing other power structures, which are trying to create a kind of rupture in the so-called ordered society. On the other hand, we have, as I said, Reverend Williams and his important concept, structure of feeling. Structure of feeling, again, should be studied in terms of other power structures which are always available, present in a society. So Williams is of opinion that there is no one dominant structure, there is no one dominant discourse. Rather, there are other discourses and other structures which are always there in society, and they always posit a good amount of challenge, not only in terms of Foucauldian power, rather in terms of bringing about a kind of change where a dominant discourse is not bound to be dominant forever. It has to be replaced. It has to be changed, replaced. I mean, these are certain important words I'm using. Replace, that's a different connotation which I would like to discuss sometimes later. So structure of feeling refers to this. Another important Marxist critic is Louis Althusser, and his important aspect, his important assumption, concept of ideology. Ideology is a set of beliefs, practices, ideas, set of rules and regulations about behavior, etiquettes, visible and invisible, both. And we, the individuals, we the human beings, have simply to be considered as a typical product, as there is a very important term, manufactured by consent. We are the product, we are the constructed, we are the manufactured identities. We are not what we think ourselves to be. Most of us would be of the opinion that it is we who choose the ideology. It is we who have the freedom to go for the kind of worldview which one wants to have. But quite differently, quite ironically, what happens? It is not we who choose the ideology, rather it is the ideology which chooses us. It is the ideology which makes us. Ideology constructs us. This is one of the important one of the important notions of Louis Althusser. Althusser also talks about the process of subject formation in terms of interpellation. This is very important aspect whereby subjects are not formed in terms of certain essences, in terms of certain essential attributes, in terms of truth, beauty and goodness, in terms of soul and oversoul. Rather, subjects are being created, they're being constructed. I've been talking about this just right now. And this very assumption of being the very assumption that one is complete and one is in a position to make his or her own specific position in society in terms of his or her own unique experience. It's a kind of false consciousness. It's not true. We always live in a kind of certain false statements and false conceptions, false convictions. So now we have Italian Marxist critic Antonio Gramsci, and he comes up with his very important concept of hegemony. Hegemony is that tool, technique, device, you can pluralize this, tools, techniques, devices, which help in the establishment of dominant discourses, which help in the furtherance, in establishing processes of the dominant structures, dominant powers, dominant culture. Hegemony he categorizes in two categories. First, visible, second, invisible. Visible refers to the set of practices which are being done by state and its various apparatuses, including law, rules and regulations, state, reason, code, constitution, penal codes, visible. Invisible, church, religion, not only church, religion, educational institutions, traditional and customary beliefs and practices, and most important, family. So there are certain important aspects, regarding certain important Marxist critiques, which one has to keep in mind in order to have a kind of a better understanding of cultural materialism. Now, when you read one of the important theory books, that is Beginning Theory by Peter Barry, while talking about cultural materialism, gives us four important components of this very critical discourse. And I would like you to understand these components while keeping in mind the kind of analysis we did about new historicism. So the first important component which he discusses is the historical context. And I hope that you all remember that what we discussed in terms of new historicism, especially text is not autonomous, text is not independent, text is not merely verbal icon, text is about several historical processes. Text is rooted in various social realities, historical context, theoretical methods, let us put it in that way. The second important component, which we tried to understand in terms of new historicism while talking about the kind of critical discourses which were in vogue in the wake of structuralism and post-structuralism. So structuralism and several post-structuralist ideas, especially deconstruction, feminism, postmodernism, and several other concepts, which are very important when we try to go for cultural materialistic approach towards the analysis of Renaissance, Shakespearean, and other writers. So somewhere it becomes important for all of us to make a statement at this juncture that most of the cultural materialism and their practices, cultural materialists and their practices were largely based on Renaissance plays, especially written by Shakespeare. Now, third component which Peter Barry talks about is political commitment. And this political commitment should be understood in the light of strong values, a strong amount of conviction which are there inherent, which are there implied in Marxism, which is always there to bring about possible political, social change. Important thing, political commitment. And then fourth component which he describes, which he outlines in his book, is textual analysis. Cultural materialism is not something which deals with such abstractions of such ideas, no. It has to have a concrete text. It has to have certain practical practices at the same time. Textual analysis, very important concept, which Peter Barry provides in his understanding of the term cultural materialism. Now, cultural materialism and new historicism have always been taken together, and more than often they have been used as a synonym to each other, with certain important differences. The first difference being new historicism practiced in America and cultural materialism practiced in England. But apart from this, apparent difference, with some more which I would like to talk about, maybe some later time than that. But it's time to talk about how cultural materialism differs from new historicism in a radical way. So while talking about new historicism, I was quoting Ellen Sinfield, where Ellen Sinfield accuses new historicism of a kind of approach which talks about other identities, other discursive power centers. At the same time, these other power centers, other power structures simply help to maintain the dominant discourse, dominant structure. It means they cannot bring a kind of social change. They can't come into full front. They are there, no doubt. But they are there to substantiate, they are there to validate the importance of dominant structure. But when it comes to cultural materialism, they are more interested in certain changes, let me say, changes in that way. And they talk about how the very presence of these structure of feelings, they are not there as decorative pieces. They are not there as simply as non-existing identities, or in terms of certain not to be talked about, not to be cared for. No, it's not like that. They have the power to change the social structure into something different. And this is what is most important agenda of cultural materialists. In a way, we can say that new historicism turns out to be kind of pessimistic. On the other hand, cultural materialism turns out to be full of optimism. It has hopes for a better future. And this is what I think, and yes, not one of the most important, difference between these two important discourses of later half of 20th century. Now, I shall be simply talking about certain important examples which can be cited here to give kind of examples in terms of the practices of cultural materialists or cultural materialism. The first example which I would like to give is about Macbeth of Shakespeare. So Macbeth is that character who has been taken having certain manly qualities. He is having prowess, he is having valor, he is all but a man. Masculinity, power, virility, a great warrior, a great soldier, thin of colour, thin of glamis, whatnot. But these manly qualities are being undermined, they are being questioned, they are being put into brackets in the same text of Macbeth. So his manly qualities are being questioned, where he turns out to be unmanly, especially when he has to kill King Duncan. Is he successful in killing Duncan? Does he not hesitate? Does he not show his indecisiveness? Does he not exhibit his indetermination while killing Duncan? And after all, he couldn't kill Duncan. Who kills Duncan? It is his wife, Lady Macbeth. So somewhere the Renaissance ideals of a manhood, virility, power, prowess, valor, determination, decisiveness, lack of emotion, lack of sentiments, oh my God. These are utterly lacking in Macbeth. So cultural materialists would be showing how Shakespeare's text questions the values of Renaissance period. Another example, Hamlet's Ophelia. If you look at traditional critical perspectives on Ophelia, She had been taken as sacred, chaste, virgin, feminine, slender, weak, submissive, tender. There are certain feminine qualities which a woman must cultivate, nourish, exhibit. And it is in the line of that patriarchal ideology, patriarchal thought system, man versus woman. Or as Dr. Samuel Johnson conceives of Ophelia in terms of these, she is a kind of self-sacrificial, sacrificial. She sacrifices herself. A woman must sacrifice herself for the development of man. But this kind of perspective, I think, I hope, it won't sustain in the difficult, altered historical scenarios, especially in 21st century, especially with the emergence of various feminist thoughts. So this very perspective would also let us know how cultural materialism simply concentrates not only on Shakespeare as a Renaissance writer or as an Elizabethan writer, but also the kind of theoretical framework which one has if one is the part of 21st century. The ideals, the beliefs of this very historical period should be incorporated in the analysis of any of Shakespeare's plays. Another example I would like to talk about. The example of the Merchant of Venice. The Merchant of Venice has been hailed as a text which celebrates the Christian dogma, Christian doctrine, Christian teaching. What? Love, affection, mercy, and especially the way Portia goes to the courtroom and she is teaching Shylock, the Jew, about the qualities of mercy. But when you look at the text from 21st century perspectives, a sensitive reader, a reader who is conscious, won't fail to understand the deeper implications of this text, especially the connotations, especially the important ideas of kind of religious tolerance and intolerance between Judaism and Christianity. As Shylock primarily requests to be considered not as a Jew but as a human being. As a human being, he can cry, he can feel pain, he can laugh, he can be angry, he can be hungry. But he has been taken not as a human being but as a Jew. A kind of anti-Semitism. So this play simply highlights, it simply foregrounds the basic idea. Historical contexts, historical processes are not only background, they are the foreground. They have to come in the forefront. So this very idea, this very aspect of the Merchant of Venice must be tried to be understood in the altered historical period in terms of 21st century. And in 21st century, almost everybody, especially Indians, are too much into this word. Religious intolerance, religious tolerance. Right. So these are certain important, assumptions of cultural materialism and certain practices. I hope you must have been, and you shall be trying to understand cultural materialism as it is, and if you have any query or any answer, feel free to ask. And you. Thank you very much.